The fist tangled in Amari Bennett's hair, yanked hard enough to blur her vision. She didn't scream, couldn't, because the baby kicked at the same moment, and all the air left her lungs in a silent gasp. The white Salon cape twisted around her throat as Vanessa Price, designer athleisure stretching across her spray-tanned body, wrenched Amari's head back with the casual cruelty of someone who'd never faced consequences for anything. "This is what a $100,000 cheater gets you." Vanessa's voice dripped venom across the pristine white Salon, her pink manicured nails digging into Amari's scalp. A pathetic, pregnant little wife who can't even afford a decent hairstyle. "Hey, beautiful souls, welcome back to the channel. I can already feel your energy through the screen. Where are you watching from today? Drop your city in the comments below, and if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? This story is about to take you on a ride you'll never forget. Hit that subscribe button, because trust me, you're going to want to see how this ends. The other clients in Serenity Natural Hair Studio sat frozen on the white chaise lounges, phones half raised, unsure whether to record or run. 3 women in crisp white uniforms, stylists who moments ago had been laughing about weekend plans, now stood paralyzed near the floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the perfectly manicured lawn outside. Amari's hands instinctively went to her belly, 7 months swollen with a daughter she'd already named Hope, as Vanessa circled her like a predator who'd finally cornered wounded prey. "Daniel sends his regards, by the way," Vanessa purred, releasing Amari's hair only to lean down, her breath hot against Amari's ear. "He's signing the divorce papers tonight. Said he can't wait to be free of you and that thing you're carrying." The lie landed like a blade between Amari's ribs. Because 3 hours ago, Daniel Cole, real estate tycoon, husband of 6 years, father of her unborn child, had texted her a photo of their new nursery furniture with a single heart emoji, had kissed her forehead before leaving for his business meeting, had promised, like he promised every week, that he was working on their financial problems, that the struggling business would turn around, that she just needed to trust him a little longer. Amari's phone buzzed in her purse, still hanging on the chair. Daniel's name flashing on the screen, calling to check on her appointment, probably. The same Daniel who was apparently promising this woman, this stranger in pink lycra and visible rage, that he'd abandon his family. One of those promises was a lie. Amari just didn't know which one yet. "Nothing to say?" Vanessa straightened, addressing the room now, playing to her audience. A blonde woman in white spoke urgently into her phone near the potted palms. Another staffer recorded everything on an iPad, her hands shaking. "That's what I thought. You're pathetic, Amari. Did you really think a man like Daniel would stay with someone like you?" The word dripped with everything Vanessa didn't need to say. Every racist dog whistle, every colorist slur, every piece of internalized poison that had infected women's spaces since the beginning of time. Amari's vision swam. The baby kicked again, harder this time. And a sharp pain lanced through her lower back, the same pain her doctor had warned her about. The warning signs of premature labor that pregnancy at 37 with high blood pressure made terrifyingly possible. She couldn't do this. Couldn't break down here. Couldn't give this woman the satisfaction. Couldn't risk her daughter's life over a mistress's public tantrum. But she also couldn't stand up. Vanessa's phone, rose gold, probably worth more than Amari's monthly budget, sat propped against a decorative vase on the station beside them. The screen showed a text thread, and even through her tears, Amari could see Daniel's name at the top. Messages about wire transfers, about keeping things quiet. about handling the wife situation. The wife situation. That's what 6 years of marriage, of believing in someone, of carrying his child, had been reduced to. A situation. You want to know the best part? Vanessa was on a roll now, feeding off the horrified silence of her audience. She grabbed her phone, swiping through photos with theatrical flair. This is the penthouse he bought me in Miami. This is the car. Maserati, custom interior. And this... She thrust the screen toward Amare's face. This is the vacation we're taking to Santorini next month. First class, private villa, while you're what? Changing diapers in that sad little house he keeps you in? The front door chimed, a soft, pleasant sound completely at odds with the violence saturating the room. Vanessa didn't even glance toward it, too intoxicated by her own cruelty. I mean, look at you, sitting there in clearance rack maternity clothes, getting your hair done at some basic... Excuse me. The voice cut through Vanessa's monologue like a scalpel, quiet, precise, and carrying the kind of authority that made federal criminals sweat on witness stands. Everyone turned. The woman who'd just entered moved through the salon with the unhurried confidence of someone who owned not just the building, but the very air inside it. She wore a tailored cream suit that probably cost more than Vanessa's entire outfit, her natural hair styled in elegant locks that fell past her shoulders. Her resemblance to Amari was unmistakable. Same high cheekbones, same deep brown eyes, same full lips. But where Amari's face showed shock and pain, this woman's showed nothing at all, which was somehow more terrifying than rage. Nina Bennett, federal prosecutor, salon owner, and Amari's older sister, set her leather briefcase down with a soft click that seemed to echo like a gavel. Her eyes swept the scene with the practiced assessment of someone who'd walked into 1,000 crime scenes. Her sister in the chair, cape twisted, tears streaming, the woman in pink standing over her like a conqueror, the frozen staff, the recording devices, evidence, all of it. I apologize for the interruption, Nina said pleasantly, her smile not reaching her eyes. But I believe there's been a misunderstanding about how we conduct ourselves in my establishment. Vanessa finally looked at her, really looked, and something flickered across her face. Not recognition exactly, but the instinctive unease of prey suddenly realizing they're not alone in the jungle. Your establishment? Vanessa's laugh was sharp, brittle. Please, I was just assaulting a pregnant woman on camera, Nina finished smoothly. She glanced at the staffer with the iPad. Jasmine, please tell me you captured clear footage of the moment Ms. I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name. Vanessa Price. The words came out automatically, and Amari watched the exact second Vanessa realized her mistake. Nina's smile widened fractionally. Price, Vanessa Price. And you're here because... I'm a customer, Vanessa said, but the confidence was leaking from her voice like air from a punctured tire. Interesting. Nina pulled out her own phone, government-issued, encrypted, the kind that made defense attorneys nervous. Because we require appointments at Serenity, and I don't see a Vanessa Price in today's schedule, which means you entered my private business, assaulted my sister, and her eyes dropped to Vanessa's phone, still displaying those incriminating messages, may have just provided evidence in an ongoing federal investigation. The room went silent, not the shocked silence from before, but the suffocating quiet of a trap snapping shut. Vanessa's face drained of color beneath her spray tan. Investigation? I haven't... Shh. Nina held up one finger, her expression remaining pleasant, even as her eyes went cold as January. I haven't asked you any questions yet, but I will. Because, you see, Ms. Price, I have an excellent memory for case files. And about 6 months ago, a certain offshore account popped up in our Financial Crimes Division. Wire transfers from a shell corporation called Cole Holdings. Purchases made with laundered money. Text messages that could constitute conspiracy to commit fraud. She paused, letting each word land like a stone in still water. The name, Daniel Cole, ring any bells? Nina watched Vanessa's pupils dilate, the physiological tell of pure panic that no amount of Botox could hide. Daniel is my boyfriend, Vanessa stammered, her voice losing all its earlier venom. The hand gripping her phone trembled. We're in love? Whatever business things he does, I don't. Of course you don't. Nina's tone was almost sympathetic, which somehow made it worse. You just accept the penthouse, the Maserati, the Santorini vacation, all purchased with money you never questioned. She tilted her head. Tell me, Vanessa, when a man hands you a Black American Express card registered to an LLC in the Cayman Islands, do you think that's romance? Or evidence? Amari watched her sister work with a mixture of awe and relief so profound it made her dizzy. This was Nina, in her element. Not the protective older sister who'd helped raise her after their mother died, but the federal prosecutor who'd built a career destroying people who thought they were untouchable. Nina, Amari's voice cracked. Not yet, baby girl. Nina's expression softened for half a second as she looked at her sister, then hardened again as she turned back to Vanessa. Right now, Ms. Price is going to answer some questions. Voluntarily, of course. Vanessa's fight-or-flight response was written across her face. She glanced at the door, at her phone, at the stylists who were absolutely not going to help her. I want a lawyer, she whispered. Nina's smile was razor-sharp. Excellent choice. Because assault and battery, conspiracy to commit wire fraud, and being an accessory to money laundering? You're going to need a very good one. The salon door chimed again. 2 women in FBI windbreakers entered, like they'd been waiting for their cue, because they probably had been. Vanessa's legs gave out. She collapsed onto the nearest chaise, her perfect facade crumbling like cheap plaster. He said he loved me. He said we'd be together. He said... He lied, Amari said quietly, her hand still protecting her belly. That's what Daniel does. Nina knelt beside her sister, her hand gentle on Amari's shoulder, the first tender gesture since she'd entered. Are you okay? The baby? We're okay. Amari's tears fell freely now, but they weren't tears of humiliation anymore. We're going to be okay. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, a black Mercedes pulled into the parking lot. Daniel Cole stepped out, phone to his ear, completely unaware that his entire empire was about to collapse inside a hair salon. Nina stood, straightening her suit jacket. Showtime, she said softly. Daniel Cole walked through the salon door like he owned it, chest puffed, designer suit sharp enough to cut glass, the kind of swagger that came from years of getting away with everything. His eyes found Amari first, then Vanessa, collapsed on the chaise, then the FBI agents, then Nina. The swagger evaporated. What the hell is going on here? His voice carried that edge of masculine authority men like him wielded like weapons. Amari, why are you crying? Who are these people? FBI, one agent said flatly, holding up credentials. Mr. Cole, we have questions regarding financial transactions linked to your accounts. Daniel's jaw tightened, but he recovered quickly. Too quickly. Smiled that charming smile that had convinced Amari to marry him, convinced investors to trust him. convinced Vanessa she was special. "I think there's been a misunderstanding. My lawyer will—" "Your lawyer is already downtown," Nina interrupted, her voice cutting through his performance. "Funny thing about wire fraud investigations, Daniel. Once we freeze the accounts, everyone starts talking." His eyes finally registered who she was. "Nina, this is between me and my wife. Family business." "Was it family business when you used marital assets to buy your mistress a penthouse?" Nina stepped closer, and Amari watched her sister transform into the prosecutor who'd made grown men weep on the stand. "Was it family business when you laundered money through shell corporations while your pregnant wife clipped coupons? Or is it only family business now that you're caught?" Vanessa made a strangled sound. "You said you were getting divorced. You said she didn't matter. You said—" "Shut up, Vanessa!" Daniel's mask cracked completely, revealing the ugliness underneath. The salon went dead silent. Amari pushed herself up from the chair, one hand braced on the armrest, the other cradling her belly. Every eye turned to her. The wife who'd been humiliated, assaulted, lied to. The woman both of them had reduced to a situation. When she spoke, her voice was steady as stone. "I want a divorce, Daniel. I want full custody. And I want every cent you stole from our accounts returned." She looked at Nina. "And I want him prosecuted for everything he's done." Daniel's face went purple. "You can't. You have no proof." "Actually," Nina held up Vanessa's rose gold phone, still unlocked, still displaying months of incriminating messages. "We have everything we need. Your mistress was kind enough to document your entire criminal enterprise, wire transfers, offshore accounts. Even the text where you discussed hiding assets from your wife during the divorce you swore wasn't happening." She looked at Vanessa with something almost like pity. "You weren't his girlfriend, sweetie. You were his evidence trail." The FBI agents moved forward, and Daniel Cole, millionaire, cheater, criminal, finally realized he'd walked into a trap set by the one woman he should never have underestimated: his wife's sister. The next 72 hours felt like living inside a hurricane. Amari sat in Nina's downtown office, surrounded by bankers' boxes and federal prosecutors who spoke in acronyms she didn't understand. RICO, FinCEN, SAR reports. Every folder they opened revealed another layer of Daniel's betrayal. Mistresses plural, not singular. Properties she'd never heard of. Debts that made her stomach turn. "He mortgaged your mother's house," Nina said quietly, sliding a document across the mahogany desk. "The one she left you. Forged your signature 6 months ago." Amari's hands shook as she read. The house where she'd planned to raise hope, where her mother had died holding her hand, where every good memory of her childhood lived, leveraged for Daniel's gambling debts. "Can we get it back?" Her voice barely rose above a whisper. "We're going to get everything back." Nina's certainty was the only thing keeping Amari from drowning. "But baby girl, I need you to be strong a little longer. The preliminary hearing is next week, and his lawyers are going to come at you hard." They did. Daniel's attorney, a shark in a three-piece suit named Richard Dawson, painted Amari as a gold digger who'd trapped his client with a pregnancy. Never mind that she'd worked 2 jobs to put Daniel through business school. Never mind that she'd believed every lie, trusted every promise, loved a man who'd never existed. The media loved it. Millionaire's wife teams with prosecutor sister to destroy husband, screamed the headlines. Comment sections filled with strangers dissecting her appearance, her worth, her right to be believed. Vanessa, granted immunity in exchange for testimony, sat in depositions describing their affair with clinical detachment. He said Amari was boring, that she'd let herself go, that he only stayed because divorce would ruin his business reputation. Each word was a knife Amari hadn't known she could still feel. But worse than the betrayal, worse than the public humiliation, was the loneliness. Because Nina was brilliant in the courtroom, but emotionally unavailable everywhere else. She'd built walls after prosecuting her own ex-husband for domestic violence 3 years ago. Walls that kept her safe, but left Amari craving the sister who used to braid her hair and promise everything would be okay. "You're doing great," Nina would say, squeezing Amari's shoulder before disappearing into another 18-hour workday. But Amari wasn't doing great. She was 37 weeks pregnant, sleeping on Nina's guest room floor because she couldn't afford rent, eating crackers because morning sickness had returned with a vengeance, and terrified that hope would be born into this chaos. The baby kicked, hard enough to make Amari gasp. And then her water broke. Right there in Nina's office, surrounded by evidence of her husband's crimes, 72 hours before the hearing that would determine her entire future. "Nina," Amari whispered, feeling warmth spread down her legs. "Something's wrong." The hospital room smelled like antiseptic and fear. "She's in distress," the doctor said, eyes locked on the fetal monitor showing Hope's erratic heartbeat. "We need to prep for emergency C-section, now." Amari couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The contractions were tearing her apart, but worse was the terror that she'd lose her daughter before ever holding her. That Daniel's poison had infected even this, the one pure thing left in her shattered life. I'm here. Nina gripped her hand so tight it hurt, and for the first time in 3 years, Amari saw her sister's walls crack, saw tears, saw the girl who'd raised her after their mother died, who'd promised to always protect her. "Hope is going to be fine. You're both going to be fine." But as they wheeled Amari toward surgery, her phone buzzed on the bedside table. Nina grabbed it. Her face went white. "What?" Amari gasped between contractions. "Nina, what?" "It's from Dawson, Daniel's lawyer." Nina's voice shook with barely contained rage. "He's filing for emergency custody, claiming you're an unfit mother, that the stress you've created is endangering the baby, that—" She couldn't finish. The cruelty was breathtaking. Even now, even as his daughter fought for her life, Daniel was weaponizing the legal system to maintain control. "He can't," Amari sobbed. "He can't take her. Nina, please." "Over my dead body." Nina's expression hardened into something terrible and beautiful. She kissed Amari's forehead. "You focus on bringing hope into this world. I'll handle Daniel." They sedated Amari before she could respond. She woke to silence. Terrifying, suffocating silence where a baby's cry should have been. "Hope?" Amari's voice cracked. "Where's my—" "Right here, Mama." Nina stood by the window, a tiny bundle cradled against her chest. Sunlight streamed through the blinds, catching the tears streaming down her sister's face as she rocked the baby with infinite gentleness. 7 pounds, 2 ounces, Nina whispered. "Perfect. She's absolutely perfect." Relief hit Amari like a tidal wave. "Let me. I need to hold her." Nina brought Hope over, placed her in Amari's arms with the reverence of handling something sacred. The baby was beautiful. Dark curls, rosebud lips, Daniel's nose, but Amari's eyes. Eyes that opened and looked at her mother with ancient wisdom. "Hi, sweet girl," Amari breathed. "I'm your mommy, and I promise, no one will ever hurt you." "They won't get the chance." Nina pulled up a chair, and her expression shifted to business mode. While you were in surgery, something interesting happened. Vanessa called me. She wanted immunity revoked, said she had information about Daniel we didn't have. Amari looked up sharply. What information? Turns out Vanessa wasn't just documenting the affair for fun. She was insurance. Nina's smile was predatory. She recorded everything, Amari. Every conversation where Daniel discussed hiding assets. Every plan to destroy you in court. Every admission of fraud. And the best part? She leaned forward. She recorded him 3 days ago, explicitly stating he'd cause you so much stress during pregnancy that you'd either miscarry or give birth to a damaged child he could use to prove you unfit. The words hung in the air like poison. Amari felt rage bloom in her chest, not the helpless fury of the last 3 months, but cold, clarifying anger. He wanted Hope to be hurt. He wanted me to lose her. Yes, Nina's voice was gentle but firm. But here's what he didn't count on. Vanessa loved him, really loved him. And when she realized he'd used her to try to kill his own child. Nina held up her phone, showing a video file. She gave us everything. The offshore accounts, the shell corporations, the bribes to building inspectors, the investor fraud. All of it. Why would she do that? Nina's expression softened. Because when the FBI told her you were in emergency labor, she asked if the baby would survive. And when they said they didn't know, she broke. Said she never signed up to be party to infanticide. She paused. Vanessa's a lot of things, but she's not a monster. Daniel is. Hope squirmed in Amari's arms, making the tiny mewling sounds of a healthy newborn. What happens now? Amari asked. Nina stood, straightening her blazer like armor. Now? Now I bury him. Daniel's lawyer filed 12 motions in 4 days. Emergency custody, restraining order, mental competency evaluation. Each one more vicious than the last. Each designed to paint Amari as unstable, vindictive, a danger to her own child. And somehow, impossibly, he was winning. Judge Morrison granted the psychiatric evaluation, Nina said, her voice tight with barely controlled fury. She stood in Amari's hospital room, still recovering from the C-section, and looked like she wanted to put her fist through a wall. It's procedural bullshit, but we have to comply. He's going to take her. Amari clutched Hope tighter, the baby sleeping peacefully against her chest, oblivious to the war raging around her. Nina? He's actually going to take my daughter. No, he's not. I won't let. You can't promise that. The words exploded out of Amari, 3 months of terror and rage finally breaking through. You're brilliant in court, but you're not God. What if Morrison is dirty? What if Daniel bought him? What if... Her phone rang. Unknown number. Nina grabbed it, answered on speaker. Who is this? It's Vanessa. The voice was small, scared. I need to talk to Amari. Alone. Not happening, Nina snapped. Anything you say. Daniel knows I flipped. Vanessa's words tumbled out in a rush. His people found me 2 hours ago. They hurt me, Nina. Told me if I testify, they'll kill me. And I believe them because Daniel just texted me a photo of my mother's house with a red X over it. The line went dead silent. I'm recanting everything, Vanessa whispered. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But I can't die for this. Without my testimony, you have nothing. The case falls apart. Daniel walks, and he gets Hope. The call ended. Amari felt the world tilt sideways. No, no, she can't. She just did. Nina's face had gone ashen. Without Vanessa's testimony about the recordings, the offshore accounts, the conspiracy, we lose the criminal case. And if we lose that, the judge has no reason to deny Daniel custody rights. There has to be something! Amari was sobbing now, her stitches screaming in protest. Please, Nina, there has to be… I don't know what! Nina's composure finally shattered. She turned away, hands pressed to her face, and Amari saw her sister's shoulders shake. I've been a prosecutor for 12 years, and I don't know how to save you from this. He outplayed us. He threatened the witness, probably paid off half the court, and now… She couldn't finish. Amari looked down at Hope, her daughter's tiny fingers curled around her thumb. This perfect, innocent life that she'd grown inside her body, that she'd almost died bringing into the world. Daniel would teach her to lie, to cheat, to hurt people, would raise her to be cruel like him, or worse, would neglect her entirely while using her as a weapon against Amari forever. I'll run. Amari's voice was hollow. Take Hope and disappear. Change our names. Leave the country. That's kidnapping. You'd go to prison. Nina turned back, eyes red. And he'd still get her. The hospital room felt like a tomb. Outside, the sun was setting over the city. Probably the last sunset Amari would see as Hope's mother. Tomorrow was the custody hearing. Tomorrow, Judge Morrison would look at a mother recovering from emergency surgery and a father with expensive lawyers, and he'd make a choice. Amari already knew which choice he'd make. Hope stirred, whimpering softly. Amari pulled her closer, breathed in that perfect newborn smell, and tried to memorize everything, the weight of her, the warmth, the trust. I love you, she whispered into her daughter's dark curls. No matter what happens tomorrow, I love you more than anything in this world. Nina sank into the chair beside the bed, broken in a way Amari had never seen. And for the first time since this nightmare began, neither sister could find words to make it better. The knock came at 3 a.m. Amari jerked awake, instinctively clutching Hope closer. Nina was already on her feet, hand reaching for the panic button. The door opened. Vanessa stumbled in, face bruised purple, lip split, moving like her ribs were broken. Behind her stood 2 uniformed officers. Don't, Vanessa held up a trembling hand. I'm okay. I asked them to bring me here. Nina's prosecutor instincts kicked in immediately. Who did this to you? Daniel's guys. They wanted to make sure I understood. Vanessa's voice was thick, damaged. But here's what they didn't understand. I'm already dead if I don't testify. He'll kill me anyway to clean up loose ends. Men like Daniel don't leave witnesses. She pulled out her phone with shaking fingers, then a backup hard drive from her jacket. So I'm going scorched earth, every recording, every document, every text message where he planned to destroy you and Hope. All of it backed up in 3 locations, sent to the FBI field office, and she looked directly at Amari. I'm testifying tomorrow. No immunity deal. No protection. I'm just done being his weapon. Amari stared at this woman who'd humiliated her, attacked her, nearly destroyed her life. Why? Because I saw the ultrasound photo, the one Daniel showed me 6 months ago, bragging about how he'd trapped you. Vanessa's voice cracked. And I laughed. I actually laughed at your baby and called her a mistake. But when they told me Hope almost died, when I realized Daniel had orchestrated that. She pressed her fist to her mouth, sobbing. I became the monster I always swore I'd never be. My own mother raised me alone after my father abandoned us. I know what it's like to be the child that destroys a woman's life, and I helped him try to do that to Hope. Nina's expression was unreadable. This doesn't erase what you did. I know. Nothing can. Vanessa looked at Amari. But maybe it can save her. Save Hope from growing up with a father who sees her as leverage instead of a miracle. Amari felt something shift inside her chest. Not forgiveness, not yet, but something like understanding. They'd both been Daniel's victims, both been manipulated, used, discarded when they served their purpose. The hearing is in 5 hours, Nina said quietly, her legal mind already racing ahead. With Vanessa's testimony and the evidence, we can bury Daniel. But Vanessa, you understand what you're risking? I understand I can't live with myself if I don't. Vanessa straightened despite obvious pain. So let's finish this. Nina pulled out her phone, started making calls. Federal agents, witness protection, emergency motions. Her voice was steady again, commanding. The prosecutor who never lost. Amari watched her sister work, watched Vanessa sit despite her injuries, watched Hope sleep peacefully through the chaos, and felt something she hadn't felt in months. Hope. Real hope. Not the desperate, clawing kind, but the solid certainty that they were going to win. That Daniel's empire of lies was crumbling. That her daughter would grow up knowing her mother fought for her with everything she had. Thank you, Amari said to Vanessa, for choosing to be brave. Vanessa's eyes filled with tears. Thank your sister. She's the one who showed me what real strength looks like. Nina glanced up from her phone, and for the first time in years, Amari saw the walls come down completely, saw the sister who'd raised her, who'd sacrificed her own happiness to keep Amari safe, who'd turned her pain into power and her trauma into justice. We're going to court in 4 hours, Nina said. And we're going to destroy him. Outside, dawn was breaking over the city, and Amari held her daughter close, ready to fight. The courtroom was packed. Judge Morrison sat like a stone statue behind the bench, his expression unreadable as Nina stood to present her case. Daniel sat at the defense table in an expensive suit, radiating the confidence of a man who'd never lost anything that mattered. He smiled at Amari, cruel, possessive, like he'd already won. Your Honor, Nina began, her voice carrying the weight of 12 years destroying men exactly like Daniel Cole. The evidence will show that the respondent is not merely an unfit father. He is a criminal who orchestrated psychological and financial abuse designed to harm both his wife and unborn child. Dawson objected. Morrison overruled. And then Nina unleashed hell. She played the recordings, Daniel's voice describing how he'd stress Amari into a miscarriage, how he'd hidden assets specifically to leave her destitute, how he'd coached Vanessa to publicly humiliate his pregnant wife, to break her spirit completely. The courtroom went silent, except for Daniel's voice, cold and calculating, discussing his daughter like she was a business problem to be solved. If the baby's damaged from stress, even better. Proves Amari's unfit, and I get full custody plus sympathy points. Amari watched the judge's face turn to granite. Then came the financial records. Shell corporations in the Cayman Islands, wire fraud totaling $4.1 million, investor money stolen and funneled into offshore accounts. The mortgaged house, Amari's inheritance, leveraged for gambling debts Daniel had hidden for 3 years. Dawson tried to object, tried to claim illegal evidence, tried everything. Morrison shut him down every time. "Ms. Bennett," the judge said quietly, "call your next witness." Vanessa walked to the stand, face still bruised, moving with visible pain. She was sworn in, and when she looked at Daniel, there was no love left, only the cold clarity of someone who'd finally seen the monster behind the mask. Nina didn't waste time. "Ms. Price, please tell the court about your relationship with Daniel Cole." "He used me, Vanessa's voice was steady despite the tremor in her hands. "Told me I was special while he was using marital funds to buy my affection. He gave me access to accounts I now know were built on fraud. And when I realized his wife was pregnant, he told me—" Her voice broke. "He told me the baby was leverage. That he'd make Amari suffer so badly during pregnancy that she'd either lose the child or give birth to a defective baby he could use to prove she was unfit." The gallery gasped. Daniel's mask finally cracked. "She's lying! Your Honor, this woman is—" "Sit down, Mr. Cole," Morrison's voice cut like ice, "or I'll hold you in contempt." Nina continued, methodical and merciless. Financial experts testified about the fraud. FBI agents confirmed ongoing investigations. Medical professionals described the stress-induced complications that nearly killed both Amari and Hope. And through it all, Daniel's empire crumbled in real time. Finally, Nina called Amari to the stand. She walked slowly, still healing from surgery, and when she sat down, she looked directly at Daniel, the man she'd loved, trusted, built a life with. "Tell the court," Nina said gently, "why you're seeking sole custody." Amari took a breath. "Because my daughter deserves better than a father who sees her as a weapon. She deserves to grow up knowing love isn't manipulation. That family isn't leverage. That her worth isn't measured by what she can do for someone else's ego." Her voice strengthened. "Hope deserves a mother who will protect her from men like Daniel Cole, and that's exactly what I'm going to be." The courtroom erupted in applause. Morrison gavelled for silence, but Amari saw something in his eyes. Respect, maybe even admiration. "Mr. Cole," the judge said, his voice heavy with disgust, "I've presided over family court for 23 years. I have never seen such calculated cruelty directed at one's own child. This court grants full custody to Ms. Bennett, with 0 visitation rights pending resolution of the criminal charges against you. Furthermore," Daniel lunged from his chair, "you can't do this. She's my daughter. I have rights." Federal agents were on him immediately, forcing him back down as he screamed threats, curses, promises of appeals. But it was over. Morrison's gavel fell like a guillotine. "This hearing is adjourned. Mr. Cole, you're remanded to federal custody." They dragged Daniel from the courtroom, still screaming, and Amari felt 6 years of fear and pain drain away like poison from a wound. Nina wrapped her arms around her sister, and they both cried. Not from sadness, but from relief so profound it felt like resurrection. "You did it," Amari whispered. "You saved us." "No, baby girl," Nina pulled back, smiling through tears. "You saved yourself. I just gave you the weapons." 6 months later, Amari stood in the doorway of her mother's house, the one Nina had fought to reclaim from Daniel's creditors, the one that now belonged to her and Hope free and clear. Sunlight streamed through the renovated kitchen where her mother used to make Sunday breakfast. The nursery upstairs was painted soft yellow, filled with the toys and books Amari had dreamed of buying when she thought she couldn't afford anything. Hope sat in her bouncer, giggling at absolutely nothing with the pure joy only babies possess. "She's got your laugh?" Nina said from the couch, cradling a cup of tea. She visited every Sunday now, walls finally down, the sister Amari remembered from childhood fully returned. "Mom would have loved her. She would have loved watching you destroy Daniel in court even more." Amari grinned. "I still can't believe he got 15 years. Wire fraud, conspiracy, assault by proxy, attempted harm to a minor. He earned every second." Nina's smile was satisfied. "And the civil suit settlement? $4 million in restitution, plus this house, plus his entire legitimate business portfolio. You're set for life, Amari. You and Hope both." Amari sank into the armchair, still processing how completely her life had transformed, from broken and terrified to financially stable and free, from doubting her worth to knowing, bone deep, that she was enough. "What about Vanessa?" she asked quietly. Witness protection placed her in Colorado. New identity, new life. She sends updates through her handler. Nina pulled out her phone, showed a photo of Vanessa smiling, really smiling, in front of mountains. She's in therapy, volunteering at a women's shelter. Says helping other abuse survivors is the only thing that makes her feel human again. Amari studied the photo. They'd never be friends, but somewhere in the wreckage of Daniel's destruction, they'd found something like mutual respect. Two women who'd survived the same monster and chosen different paths to healing. "I forgive her," Amari said. "Not for me, for Hope. I want my daughter to grow up knowing that people can change, that courage counts, that it's never too late to choose right over easy." Nina's eyes glistened. "You're going to be an incredible mother." "I already am." Amari looked at Hope, her miracle baby, her reason for everything. "And she's going to grow up knowing she's loved unconditionally, that she's not a weapon or leverage or a mistake. She's just Hope, perfect exactly as she is." The doorbell rang. Amari opened it to find Jasmine, the stylist from Serenity, holding a casserole dish and wearing a nervous smile. Behind her stood the other Salon staff, arms full of gifts. "We wanted to check on you," Jasmine said shyly, "and apologize for not stepping in sooner that day. We were scared, but that's no excuse." "You filmed everything," Amari said gently. "That footage helped convict Daniel. You did step in, just in the way that mattered most." They stayed for hours, laughing and sharing stories, and Amari realized her life was filling with people who chose kindness, who showed up, who celebrated her victories, and held her through the residual pain. As the sun set, Nina helped clean up while the guests said their goodbyes. Hope had fallen asleep against Amari's chest, her tiny hand fisted in her mother's shirt. "Before you became a mom, what do you think your purpose was?" Nina asked softly. Amari considered. "Surviving, I guess. Just getting through each day." "And now?" "Now?" Amari kissed Hope's forehead, breathed in that perfect baby smell. "Now my purpose is teaching her that she deserves the world, that strong women run in our family, that her Aunt Nina is the fiercest protector she'll ever have, and her mama loved her enough to fight the devil himself." Nina wiped her eyes. "She's lucky to have you. We're lucky to have each other." Amari reached for her sister's hand. "All three of us." Outside, the neighborhood was settling into evening. Kids playing, families gathering, the ordinary magic of peaceful lives. The life Amari had fought for. The life Hope deserved. Her phone buzzed. A notification from her new YouTube channel, the one where she shared her story, helped other women recognize financial abuse, built a community of survivors who refused to stay silent. The comments were flooding in. "You saved my life. Because of you, I left. My daughter and I are free now." Amari smiled, held her daughter closer, and thought about her mother, how she'd taught Nina to be fierce, taught Amari to be resilient, and somehow from heaven was watching them both become exactly who they were meant to be. "We made it, baby girl," she whispered to Hope. "We're finally home." And in that moment, surrounded by love and light and the sister who'd moved mountains to save her, Amari Bennett had everything she'd ever needed.